European vision, American eye. August Biehle was a Cleveland, Ohio artist whose 94-year-long life encompassed an art career of over 70 years. Biehle is one of the artists of the Cleveland School, a term which groups together the artists who lived and worked in Cleveland from 1900 to 1960. However, much of his formal training was European, and his work as a professional artist reflected European influences. Now, Biehle's father, August F. Biehle Sr., had emigrated to Cleveland in 1880 from Freiburg, Germany, where he was a master craftsman. He came to Cleveland to decorate the mansions of Euclid Avenue, Millionaire's Row, as it was then called. After attending Cleveland's public schools, August Biehle was apprenticed to his father. During this time, he worked with his father on a reconstructed Welsh castle, Glamorgan, in Alliance, Ohio. Biehle's father painted this decorating sample to show how he would cover the walls and ceilings with variations of this design. One sees in it the close values and grade chromatic harmonies that remain quietly in a two-dimensional visual space, which influenced his son's early paintings. In 1903, August Biehle Sr. sent his son to Europe for further study. He stopped first in Paris, where he took figure drawing classes. Biehle went to Germany, where he could speak the language. Munich, before World War I, rivaled Paris as an art center. Biehle, already having served his apprenticeship, was accepted at the Kunstgewerbeschule, a progressive school which taught design to craftsmen. During school holidays, Biehle found a warm welcome from his father's relatives in Freiburg and his mother's people in Ottenheim am Leer, near the Rhine River. He arrived at the Kunstgewerbeschule during a time when the designs produced there were in the style of Art Nouveau, the German name for which was Jugendstil. Biehle produced many painstaking studies of natural forms.
Plants, animals, and the human figure were stylized and rhythmically combined into decorative designs. For instance, the butterflies, other animals such the fish, or also plants, the fern, lilies, especially the growing fern, the spiral shape of the growing fern, were used by Jugendstil artists. The egg shape is another. In painting and graphic design, Jugendstil artists emphasized the contour line. They also flattened the shapes into colored planes and set them against an equally interesting background, which produced then the effect of a background-foreground reversal. Jugendstil was probably the most important influence on Biehle's work throughout his life. An early painting, Bluebird, for instance, which might have been a book cover design or a poster, is a good example of his work in Jugendstil. He uses the flattened plants and the flowers and the birds, which was one of the common Jugendstil shapes. And here we can see how he elongates the tail feathers of the bird in order to achieve a decorative design. In landscape, Biehle stylized well-observed landscape elements, such as the leaves in the trees or the tree trunks, the branches, also the fields, the sky, especially the clouds in the sky. He would outline and use them as design elements more than for realistic purposes. He emphasized shadows and gave actually them a life of their own. He does use the background-foreground reversal that Jugendstil used by emphasizing the background just as much as the foreground. And throughout his painting, the curvilinear line stressed the decorative quality of his work.
For a short time after his return to America, Biehle headed his own decorating business. Later, he became a color demonstrator for the Sherwin-Williams Company, who had pioneered the manufacture of ready-mixed wall paint colors. This view of the Cleveland Flats from a window of a now-destroyed Sherwin-Williams building shows a return to the grade, chromas, and close color values his father had taught him. It also shows rather vividly the industrial pollution of the city. Biehle began to save money toward future study at a fine arts school. Although the Cleveland School of Art had been built about the time Biehle went to Europe in 1903, it was not there that he planned to study. He longed instead to return to Germany, to the warm welcome of his parents' families, and to the cultural riches of Munich, with its music and its art galleries and its Royal Academy of Art. Preparing to qualify for entrance to the Academy, while still in Cleveland, he studied figure drawing and portraiture with F.C. Gottwald, an important teacher of art at the Cleveland School. The year before Biehle's second visit, modernism had arrived in Munich in 1910, with a show of work by younger German artists and international art revolutionaries. Biehle was in Munich at the height of the commotion in 1911, when Franz Marc and Wassily Kandinsky held the first modernist exhibition of a group called Der Blaue Reiter, the Blue Rider. In 1912, they expanded the show and published an accompanying almanac containing essays, black and white reproductions of works by Van Gogh and Gauguin, and fauve painters such as Matisse, as well as cubist works by Picasso and Delaunay, and music by avant-garde composer Arnold Schoenberg. A painting in Kandinsky's new non-objective style was shown in color. Kandinsky, a former lawyer from Moscow, had studied in 1900 at Munich's Royal Academy, where one of his teachers was Franz Stuck, a master teacher of figure drawing and head of the Academy, with whom Biehle also studied in 1911. Returning to Cleveland for the second time about 1913, Biehle happily joined with like spirits in the Cocoon Club, which mounted exhibitions in the clubhouse on East 45th Street, held life and portrait classes, and threw wonderful parties. Their annual masked ball to raise funds was famous. Biehle was a very active member, regularly painting from the model, designing tickets and posters, and exhibiting paintings. The founders of the club were lithographers, and they persuaded Biehle that his talents were peculiarly suited to the needs of this flourishing commercial art business. Biehle left Sherwin-Williams to work for Otis and then Morgan lithographers, doing the key drawings in black crayon on the printing plate. Experienced lithographer William Summer became Biehle's mentor in the lithography shop, and Biehle found in him ready acceptance for his new ideas about art. He often sketched or painted at William Summer's farm in Brandywine, where Biehle painted this rather flat and brightly colored painting of the Descent from the Cross. The New York Armory Show of 1913 could not have been as much of a shock to Biehle as it was to many Americans. While in Munich, he had already seen works by Kandinsky and by the wild beasts, or fauve, so called because of their use of brilliant, pure color. During Biehle's first years back in Cleveland, he did volumes of landscape sketches using colored pencils in their brightest hues. Corn shocks could be brilliant blue, orange, and hot pink, as could trees in a park or stones at the edge of a stream. He painted some Cuyahoga River oils in hot colors, and in an early May show exhibited one that has hook-like strokes in the water reminiscent of Delaunay. It is something of a surprise to discover that in June of 1913, an exhibition of Cubist works from Europe came to the gallery of Cleveland's William Taylor & Son department store. One wonders whether Biehle's painting of industrial workers' housing near the steel mills, with its subdued colors, dark values, and modified cubism, was influenced by this show. About 1919, Biehle joined the group of painters who gathered around Henry Keller, an important teacher at the Cleveland School of Art, in the summer school held at an old farm in Berlin Heights, west of Cleveland. Assigning landscapes, Keller taught the Munsell color theory and suggested that his students paint with blue and violet shadows. This had been practiced by Monet and the French Impressionists and was based partly on the ideas of Chevreul. The Biehle landscapes from this period are among his most interesting in terms of color. Since the end of the Civil War, it had been the custom of city dwellers to vacation in the country. A week at a Berlin Heights farm with meals and room at the farmhouse and days on the Lake Erie beaches was a standard vacation for young people from Cleveland. May Wessler, a secretary who was one of 5 children, was on just such a vacation in Berlin Heights in the summer of 1921. She took her meals in the same farmhouse as Biehle, who was attending Keller's summer school. When May returned to Cleveland, leaving Biehle behind, he courted her by mail with postcards of his own creation. Although her mother was reluctant to have her daughter marry an artist, their summer romance led to a November wedding in 1921 and a 60-year marriage. In what was then farm country south of Cleveland, August and May built a house with a studio that extended across the entire top floor. Landscape subject matter stretched out in all directions, and apple trees grew wild. 2 daughters and a son were born from 1922 to 1926, Marie, Rita, and Frederick August. The building of the Cleveland Museum of Art in 1916, with the subsequent arrival in Cleveland of William Millikan, first as curator of painting and then as museum director, along with the establishment of the May Show, had vitalized the entire artistic community, which basked in a glow of prosperity and attention. The May Show quickly became a major connection between the artists of Cleveland and their public.
Millikan created the May Show in 1919 when there was a tremendous reaction against European culture as a result of the First World War. There was a great movement in the United States to emphasize local culture, to create art out of our own scenery. And so that the May Show was created in order to encourage local artists to paint Cleveland, and it was also created to create a union between art and industry. They had categories for metalworking, industrial design, and artists were encouraged to cross boundaries. And this union between art and industry that the May Show created really set the tone for Cleveland art and established a distinctive character for Cleveland art that lasted for generations.
August Biehle enjoyed